Redemption Project.
Good afternoon, fellow Toastmasters.
Good afternoon.
It's a pleasure to be here today, and this is kind of a short-term talk, so let's preface that. My wife and I, there's this show we watch. I don't know if anybody is familiar with a gentleman by the name of Van Jones. He worked with President Obama. Unfortunately, he got fired in his administration, but he worked with President Obama. And he has his own TV show on Saturday, and he does kind of investigative. He's political. Anyway, he has this show called Project Redemption, and we just started watching the show. And I thought, wow! And between my wife and I, every time the show comes on, we're crying. At the end of the show, we're just like bawling every time, So it brings out a lot of emotion with the topic that he goes over. So here's generally what happens. What he does is he has a team of people that write victims of crime, let's say maybe a murder, and ask them if they would like to, I know this is way out there, but we can all just keep an open mind. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. But he asked them, would you like to meet with the killer of your family? Okay, I know, it's like way out there. It is. It was for me too. And I'd say, I think he mentioned probably 90% say no. But there are a small segment that want to know the other side. Because generally our criminal justice system does not bring, the victim and the criminal together. It just doesn't happen because, for obvious reasons. But there was a story of a gentleman who lived in the Bay Area. He had a daughter, 16 years old. And unfortunately, she was caught up in a shooting of a gang member there in the Bay Area, in Berkeley area. And unfortunately, she died. The young man who shot her was also 16. They actually knew each other. Not real close, but they did know of each other. And she died. He goes to prison, and his father, always kind of wanted to. Her father, I'm sorry, always kind of wanted to know, well, what happened? Why did this thing happen? And what they do is they have a series of communication where, again, they write this gentleman and say, this is something you want to do. Then they get with the criminal and say, is this something that you want to do? And they bring them together into a room and basically let them talk, And it sounds kind of way out there, I'll be honest. My first thought, how do you deal with the emotion? How do you deal with that? And the young man, I'll just fast forward this. The victim and the criminal and the father come together. They meet in the prison. He had been in jail for, I want to say, 25 years. He was 16, tried as an adult and convicted, got 25 years. And that conversation begins. They let him how would you say, organically begin to talk. And the father had a lot of questions. You would think, well, is he mad? Of course he's upset. He's angry. He's upset his daughter was taken. But he asked this young man questions. He says, why would you do this? Why would you do this? And the young man began to talk. He says, my mom was on drugs. My father was in prison. The only life I had was with the gang. And it just so happened that the gentleman he was trying to take out, another gang member, they were in the same car. He was driving. He missed the guy he was looking for and ended up hitting the daughter of the gentleman who was there. So they began to talk. And it is just a very, when you think of scale of 1 to 10, emotion is just high because the young man who committed this crime, extremely remorseful. I'm not saying that justifies anything. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the father could tell this gentleman, he's 16 at the time, a young kid, and again, knew this young girl. He wasn't trying to shoot her. He was trying to shoot the gentleman who was next to him. And, they had this dialogue. And it was just heart-wrenching. Father, what did you know about my daughter? What was going on? And at the end of this meeting, the father, this gentleman who had been going for parole, the father ended up going back to the parole and speaking up for this young kid, because he kind of found out that even though he was young, I mean, he had issues going on that were just way out there. Again, not justifying what he did, not at all. But he understood that this was just a kid at the time. He was a different guy now, different gentleman at this point. I think he was mid-early 40s or something like that. And the father ended up, how would you say, not testifying, but he spoke up for this young guy who was now in his 40s. And long story short, ended up getting him onto parole and out of the prisons, and helping the community, helping gang members not allow this same thing to occur. If you get an opportunity, the show is called Project Redemption. Very good. And it's just something different. I'm not trying to convince you of anything, but the question I want to leave you with is, should we always be judged by our bad deeds? Should that be our life story? Because we all have bad deeds. I'm saying we've all killed people, but should we be judged by that for the rest of our life? Does this gentleman who shot someone at 16 have some value now? I guess that's the question. And I know it's a heavy thing, and I know I'm weighing things down here a little bit, but for my wife and I, it was just so emotional watching this show and seeing that organic relationship kind of build. It was just very, I don't even know what the word is, but the father saw some value in this man. Even though he killed his daughter, he found some value. And now this young man is out on parole, but he is helping other gang members and young men of color not go down the same thing. So I leave you with that one question. Should we be judged for the remainder of our life through our bad deed? Not something like it. It's just something to think about. I just want to leave you with that. Let's take it out.
That's good.
Right.
And then I get, oh, that's it.
Great.